All right, welcome
All right.
back, everybody. This is episode two of RAD, Rubitracks After Dark. Once again, Nick Bailey here with Avalanche Technical Services, and we're back with the main man, Scott Profit, live from the Million Acre Farm. How are you, Scott?
Good, good, Nick. How are you doing?
Good, man. It's we had a little taste of winter this weekend in Tahoe, so that's always going to have me smiling. It was kind of bizarre for August, but yeah, I've had some lows that were down and near freezing, and then all the high peaks around here, like 6,800 feet and above, got some flurries in the central Sierra Nevada.
Well, yeah, I saw that on the Jackson Meadows page. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty
that's
cool.
right. Yeah, so Jackson Meadows Lodge, I think, is their Instagram. But that, yeah, our host
Yeah.
property for the inaugural Rubitracks Invitational event we had this spring. It's also where this fine suburban resides. So this
Right.
is the first vehicle they had with Rubitracks that we put together. So that would have been the winter of 22-23, which was our really
Yeah.
big winter here in the Sierra Nevada. So
Yeah.
that thing came together and it got run hard all winter, man. And I know the owner was such a big fan after that first winter that he went on to buy three more sets.
That's right. Yeah.
So sounds like we had a little bit of feedback from episode one, and you've been talking with a couple potential clients, but
Absolutely.
one of their stories that we kind of wanted to dive into a little bit here. You had an inquiry asking about a power rating, and so I know that started a conversation and some feedback between you and this potential customer. So thought that might be a good thing that, many listeners or viewers are wondering about out there. So what's your take on on your standard Ruby track, whether it's this 121 or the 136? Like, this is a half ton Suburban. It's a 6,000 pound vehicle stock, and with
Hmm.
tracks as it sits, it's probably about 6,500 pounds. I think torque. So this thing has a 5.3. I think it's 325 horsepower and somewhere maybe 380 pound-feet of torque. So,
Right.
what's your take on power with your product?
So the horsepower thing is kind of a funny question, right? So in theory, there's no amount of horsepower that's too much horsepower. There's only an operator that doesn't know how to apply it, right? So the thing that we have to teach our customers in the very beginning, it's not about throttling through things anymore. It's about thinking your way through it and applying only the necessary amount of horsepower. Because when you apply too much horsepower, basically the only thing you end up doing is digging holes, getting yourself stuck, right? So what you never want to do
Yeah,
is
that makes
is
sense.
is break traction. You want to stay stuck to that snow and try to disturb it as little as possible. So the biggest thing, I guess, is to communicate to the customers that it's more about the application of the horsepower versus how much it can handle.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense to me because when you're discussing over snow travel, you've got a vehicle like this. Traction is always at a premium, right? Even
Yes.
with the
Yeah.
larger surface area and
Hmm.
the biggest tracks that somebody could run, the limiting factor is always that amount of traction. So it doesn't
Yeah.
take a whole lot of power to spin these things, right? You get a gearing reduction. As
Hmm.
soon as you bolt this track on, the drive sprocket obviously is a smaller diameter than whatever tire that vehicle was running before. So you get
Yeah.
a gearing reduction that slows everything down, that gives the entire drivetrain an advantage, a mechanical advantage that's required to kind of spin these things in a
Hmm.
tricky environment. And so ultimately, like if you figure the amount of power it takes to spin that track, uh, is kind of all you need, right? Anything on
Yeah.
top of that is going to allow you to carry more speed. Once you've built inertia and you're climbing a grade or whatever, if
Yeah.
you're on a groom trail, you might be able to travel a little bit faster.
That's right. And that's where I found the horsepower comes in handy is when you want to actually clip along at a good rate, like you get something, a little four banger. They're great in the snow. They'll go anywhere. But when it comes to trying to get home quick, you got to take your time with them because it's a lot of work. The faster you go, the more energy it takes, right?
Yeah, and I think you said a mouthful there because it is getting home quick is about the only thing that I ever try to do quickly on these tracks, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's right. Yeah.
once you blaze the trail and you know what's on the ground there, that you're not going to
Yeah.
run into a log or a rock or a tree
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
and you're just kind of following tracks home. That's a really great opportunity to pick up some speed and buzz right along.
And that's a good point. Like you said, as you blaze your trail, like I've always told people, if you don't know where you're going, don't go there fast because you don't know what's under that snow. And as durable as the tracks are, they're nothing compared to a rock or a tree stump, right? So
Yeah, yeah, and honestly, so this vehicle is higher horsepower and capable of some more speed than my main track rig, the Forerunner that we showed last time. But
mm-hmm.
one of the things that's been great, and probably a good closing argument, it's a relatively low horsepower vehicle, but it's got like a Marlin crawler dual transfer case setup. And when I get into a really nasty snow situation, my first move is to throw both cases in low, put the rig in first, lock the diffs, and it's like magic, right? It's almost like crawl control, even though my truck's too old to have it. Um,
Yeah.
the tracks just kind of, they clip away at a really slow pace, and more times than not, whatever situation I'm in, it kind of just finds a way to get right back up on top.
And I think
So
that's
yeah, I
another
mean, so
another
that's
part of not applying too much horsepower, right? You're allowing the tracks to put the snow where they need to be and not just shove it out the back.
Yeah, absolutely. They're building on it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
as you're packing that stuff back and kind of making a road, um, the old snowshoe effect or whatever. You don't put
Mm-hmm.
snowshoes on and just stomp around, right? You kind of take your deliberate steps, and usually that's what helps get you up and moving. So
Yeah.
yeah, very cool. So this that was a good little tidbit as far as a viewer inquiry and something that has come up
Mm-hmm.
from time to time. So I'm glad we got to address that. I also heard, as we're moving forward here over the next couple of weeks, perhaps the next episode, we'll be dropping a new product release. So, is there any little teasers or anything you could think
So
you might want to share about that?
yeah, so I guess if we want to back up just a touch to the horsepower, this new system that we're bringing out is going to have a new feature that I don't mind disclosing here. Be a wider drive sprocket in the rear. So a lot of comments that you would have seen on Instagram or any type of social media would be we call it ratcheting, but they'll say what's that popping noise or whatnot, right? So when that track gets
That's cool.
overloaded, and that's another part of why horsepower doesn't really matter because you're not going to break them, you're just going to ratchet them. The sprocket will basically skip a tooth inside the track, and that's kind of a good thing in a way because it stops something. It's telling you that you've got so much grip on the ground that horsepower has to go somewhere, and it's allowing that sprocket to skip and release some of that tension so that you can keep going without breaking something. But on the heavier
Sure.
vehicles, it's more common because they're pushing more weight, and we want to try and hook them up a little better. So now we'll have a wider sprocket. So typically on our tracks we grab, there's six drive lugs on the inside, but we only grab four of them. So we're actually going to bring in a fifth. So we're going to get 25% more grip between the sprocket and the track, and hopefully combat that ratcheting effect and give these guys a little bit more go before the popping starts.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because I think that that's a pretty unique design element. In the last episode, I mentioned how I've been running different ATV track conversions for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and most of those, similar to the drive sprocket that's on a snowmobile, most of those uh, will use a methodology that probably most people are familiar with because we all grew up riding bicycles. So with a chain and sprocket, you've got like that positive engagement, right? Where the sprocket is sliding up
Yeah.
between the rollers on your chain. And, it's a hard connection that's driving.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought was really nice about your track setup when I got it is it's almost the opposite. The sprocket
Mm-hmm.
uses round rods like a bird cage, right? And then you've got rubber nubs actually that are on the belt. And so they
Yeah.
engage, but it's really not a boom or bust type scenario. If you're ever in that situation like you described, they're able pretty easily to just snap right by. It gives
Yeah.
you some audio feedback, right? And
Yeah.
you can also feel that as well, kind of let you know, hey, before anything serious happens, you're at a point right now where you know, your traction
Should
is plenty, and if anything after that happens, something might go wrong. Yeah, well, jumping back to weather for a minute, when
mm-hmm.
up in your neck of the woods, when would you think you guys are going to see your first snowflake?
Oh man, I swear when I was a kid, I don't know what's going on, but when I was a kid, I was playing in snowbanks in October. Like we'd go trick or treating and the end of October and sometimes have to wear our snowsuits.
Sure.
Since I've moved back home, I've been living back here now for 7 or 8 years. I've not seen snow at all that compares to my childhood. And like, if we have snow at Christmas, we're doing good. And generally, it'll rain on New Year's. So I really don't know. Like, I haven't ran my own tracks here on the island for 2 winters at least because there's been nothing to drive them on. It's just been a little bit of ice and a bit of mud and snow here and there, but it's just not been worth putting them on. So it was kind of fun for me to
Wow.
actually go
Gotcha.
down and hang out with you guys, right? Because man, I was starting to forget about what snow was like, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. Running from Canada. Yeah. Running from Canada to California just to see some snow,
Try tell that to somebody in Canada that you're going to California to play in the snow. They think you're retarded.
huh? Well, good deal. Yeah. Certainly looking forward to seeing you again this winter. So
Yeah,
some point here quick
absolutely.
as well, we're going to need to stomp out all the details on round two of the Ruby Track Invitational.
Right. Yeah. And I guess we're going to have to at some point reach out to our customer base and see who wants to join us too. So
Heck yeah. So yeah, we may have to
yeah,
start, like you said, open it up to the viewers and see who else out there and what region would be interested in hosting.
yeah, who wants to join, right? So like based on last year, it seems that the best snow is all through those Rocky Mountains. So anywhere from Vancouver down to California. So you got Washington as a big center as well. But you know, that's
Sure.
not the only place. Colorado's got a good bit of snow. We've got some customers there as well. There's a lot of people out there. I'm sure. I'm sure we can find a spot to go for sure.
Right on. Good deal. Well, as always, Scott, it's been a pleasure. I look
Absolutely,
forward to the next episode. Maybe it's the next one, maybe it's the one after that, but also, revealing this new product to the world. I'm very excited for
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, I can't wait myself. So by the time that happens, we'll have some pictures and stuff to show, and yeah, I'm sure we're gonna make a splash.
That's awesome. Good deal, Scott. Thanks again. It's always a pleasure putting this thing together. So
Right.
until next time, take it easy.
We'll talk to you again.